Welcome to your weekday cup of the word. We are in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, and Paul's going to deal with the marriage question. Now, chapter 7 forward seems to point towards these questions that the Corinthian church had sent to Paul. He's dealt with the division caused by the squabbles and whatnot in the first part of the book, and now he's going to move to these doctrinal questions that they have. And the first one is marriage. He's going to talk about the purpose of marriage and how it's a protection against immorality. He's going to talk about the sacred nature of marriage and how it is instituted by God. He's going to reiterate the things that Jesus said. He'll say things like, "Now the Lord says this, not I," and that's referring to the fact that Jesus has already taught on this subject. And then he's going to add some teachings on the subject that Jesus didn't address. Things like, what if you're married to an unbeliever? After all, when Jesus walked this earth, Jews who he preached to were never supposed to be married to unbelievers. But in the church, very often people came to Christ and were married to an unbeliever. What do you do in those cases? Do you stay with them? Do you leave them? He's going to answer that question by saying, you should stay with them and influence them as much as possible. But if they leave the marriage, you are free from bondage in such cases. He's going to talk about when you're newly converted. Does that mean if I'm converted and I'm already married, does that mean I stay married, or what happens? And he's going to say, in whatever way you're called, you come. If you're a slave when you're called, you're still a slave when you become a Christian. If you're circumcised when you become a Christian, you don't have to worry about that issue one way or the other. If you are married and you become a Christian, you're married. If you're unmarried when you become a Christian, you're unmarried. That status doesn't change when you come out of the waters of baptism. And he's going to talk about the responsibility of each spouse in marriage and how they're to care for one another and how God designed it that way. And God expects your time to be divided between serving Him and caring for your mate. He's going to talk about widows and what happens when your spouse dies. Are you free to remarry? The answer is yes. He's going to wrap all of these teachings of marriage into one packed chapter. He's going to reiterate what Jesus said and add some new details and emphasize the fact that marriage is a bond that takes commitment. That's your Daily Cup, and we'll see you